They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. Hope you guys are having a good day. We're doing this a day early. I'm going to try to keep it on Friday so I have like all Saturday to go do stuff with my family. So tomorrow I think we're going to decorate for Halloween, which should be fun. Because we love Halloween around here. Halloween's big. Big in Texas. It's big in my neighborhood. It's big with my family. So we're excited to do some Halloween decorating. Oh, here comes a cat. I started talking. Am I bugging you? What's upsetting you? Yeah? Here comes a cat. I'm not taking you to Springfield. Don't worry. Your goldfish is not safe. The cat will eat the goldfish. She doesn't care about eating pets. You're going to have to go, though. You're going to make trouble. You are a troublemaker. Hi, Joe Cats. All right. Let's get this document open. Got my outline. Where is it? Oh, almost finished up another book last night, too. The next book after this one. Shadow and Smoke. Moonsong 4. So I'm going to do a second trilogy of Moonsong books. Ooh, she scratched me. Ow. That was a pretty good scratch. I'll be right back. I'm going to clean that out. Cat scratch. Kind of annoying because I was getting my hands cut up when I have to play. It's like an inevitable cut in my hands. All right, let's go here. Okay, we met the witch. So now we're gonna have to do. Let's see the outline. We have to set up the bargain. music is loud. Thank you. I'll turn it down a bit. Here we go. writing your books, do you ever get concerned about writing something that could be considered controversial and change it? Nope. I don't, personally. But I'm also, like, not a, I'm not writing, like, racial, like, extermination fantasies or anything like that. I've read some books that were disturbing to me because the author was obviously writing them as a fantasy for some real-world violence he wanted to commit. Because that's not me. I don't really worry about stuff like that. Nowadays, what tends to be controversial is simply writing normal people having normal feelings. If you get success, you're gonna get bonked no matter what if you stick your head up. So I just don't worry about that. If someone's upset that there's no gay sex in my book, then that's just the way it is. I didn't feel like writing that, so I'm not writing that. Things like that, So I don't ever worry about that personally. I don't worry about the controversy. But the stuff I write tends to be not particularly controversial. There's certainly, like, more adult stuff in some of my books, but not really, like, controversial subjects. My books are not modern political works, if that makes any sense. They don't work that way. Yes, let's find the music here. What's the next one? What am I? Sleep.
All right, so listen up.
First, we'll have an ad. All right. Okay. Which one of your books do you recommend for a lover of grimdark fantasy? Probably Wasting Desert. It's a good intro. It's part of this continuum. See if I have it here. Nope. Sorceress Blood as well. So I read this one live. That's a good one. It's really short and cheap. Sorceress Blood. Where's Wasting Desert? Did I lose it? Whoa. My poor bookends. That's not it. Well, I got it somewhere. I'll have to find it. Nope, here it is. It was right at the front. This is fantasy horror. Both of these are fantasy horror. So they're a little more grimdark. Oop, oop, oop. So, yeah, check this out. They're both short. I'm gonna be working on my own novel while I have you live right in the background. Cool, you can hear the key clicks. Click, 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 click. Some people like it. They're like, oh, it's like ASMR. Click, 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 click. They like this clicking. People are like, what keyboard do you have? This is a Ducky 1. And it has like a little Chinese tiger, which I like. And I make mine purple and green. Purple and green are a weird contrast in color set, but I like them. Colors I like. You could change all the colors. These are like, what do they call it? Pudding caps. So it's like really bright. I might switch to another keyboard at some point that's like not as bright. But because the monitor tends to be really bright, I kind of like the keyboard to be bright. I do look at my hands sometimes as I'm doing things. So I actually wore out a DOS keyboard. So I still have it. I wrote a bunch of books on it. So I don't know. I might, maybe if I ever have some amount of success, I'll like auction it off. Like, here's the keyboard that I wrote these books on. You know. I do game dev in the background also. Awesome. Yeah, if I get into the visual novel thing, I'll probably stream the development of that, because you get people in chat who are devs and I'm like, oh, you should script it like this. It's like, oh, okay. Well, that's cool. I didn't even think of that. Because I'm not really a software developer. I'm just like an author. So, you know, my knowledge of things like C++ really came down to programming little custom bits in Max MSP like years ago, and I just learned enough to do that, and not really anything else. Plus, you know, but we used to do stuff in BASIC and like AppleScript and all these other kind of more simple languages back in the 90s and 80s, but I don't remember any of it. Stuff's more complex now. There's a lot to learn, for sure. That's fun. I like learning as well. I like learning new stuff. Definitely do. All right. Let's do Draconic. Draconic. I do C#, yeah. So C# is, I mean, if you're using Unity, I think most of the scripting is in C#. So I learned some of that to do. I just did some like basic Unity projects to try to teach myself how to use the engine, and then everyone's like, you got to stop using Unity because of this terrible licensing thing. And it's like, yeah, is there any point to using an engine that you're going to have like the worst licensing in the world with? I don't know. And then for doing a visual novel, you could just learn Python. And I learned some basic Python years ago too. I think none of it is up to date. I did like a little teach yourself programming thing that my buddy, who's a software engineer, like gave me probably 12 years ago. And I learned some of it for OpenRPG, which was a Python-based online tabletop RPG engine thing. It's still around, I'm pretty sure, but I haven't used it in years. It used to all be text-based, and you had to script it in Python. So if you do a visual novel, you can use RenPy, which it's all Python. And Python, I don't know, people say Python's easy. I don't know what makes a programming language easy, though, because I haven't learned enough to like make that determination. But people say Python's easy. C# felt unintuitive to me. but you learn what you need to do, I guess. And so I learned enough parts of C# to like make a semi-functional game that I could deploy onto a web page, which was like the point of the project, the learning project. So like that was what it was. And it was fun. Like it was really fun to learn that and kind of learn the ins and outs, and definitely made me think. It's like I had another friend who was a programmer. He's like, "No, dude, we'll like custom code the whole thing. We'll do it all from scratch." I'm like, "I don't know about that, man." We were talking about doing a project together. I'm like, it seems a lot easier to start with an engine, but I don't really know, right? I don't know enough to say for sure. But I know somebody who's like, I want to get the swiftest from my concept of design to like a product that people can play. It seems like an engine is faster to do that with, but I don't know. Versus like custom making the engine. And I did scripting back in the 90s for... There was big custom map scenes in a lot of 3D shooters in the 90s. And so, you would learn some like basic stuff to like change enemy behavior for like if you wanted to do total conversion mods and things like that for either Doom. The three big ones that people were using at the time was Marathon, Doom, and Dark Forces. And there was huge communities around all three of those. I want to say the Doom community was the biggest. The Dark Forces community was really big just because it was Star Wars. The Marathon community, though, like was really into doing really custom projects. So there was total conversion games that Bungie, even when they did the Marathon trilogy in the 90s, they shipped a whole CD, which was a lot. A CD held a lot back then, full of custom maps, including all of these total conversion games. And there was even retail versions of total conversion mods for the Marathon 2 engine, one of which was called Damage Incorporated. I don't know if it was Mac only, though. I think it was... Anyway, it was the Marathon 2 engine. And it was a squad-based shooter, which was really new in like 1996, where you were like a squad of soldiers and you could order your guys to go in different places on the map, which was just crazy cool back then. Pretty simple by today's standards, and the engine didn't look that great. By that time, people were moving on to wanting to play stuff that was more like Quake, like fully 3D stuff, but it was really cool. Unity almost pushed a terrible licensing plan, but they backpedaled and fixed it all. Okay, that's good. But it was only going to affect high-dollar earning games, so the freakout was a bit overblown. Yeah, I just heard a lot of projects is like, we have to stop and remake the game in another engine because we can't afford to do this. Like, we can't afford this licensing agreement, And then if they're going to change that on the fly, it's like, do you really want to trust them to do that? Do you know what I mean? And then I saw Unreal's, not to get into like, because this is way outside of my realm of expertise. And people were kind of freaking out over that, but I looked at it and I was like, this seems really reasonable, actually. And it makes it so it's people that are smaller developers can get into this and use the engine without having to front gigantic costs right out of the gate. I felt like the Unreal one was weird. It was like, I don't remember it, but the Unity one seemed, it was like they wanted to charge per install or something weird. I don't remember what it was. So like if somebody installed the game twice on two different machines, like you'd have to pay them for each of those installs, which is completely asinine because people like to uninstall and reinstall games. And then after you've sold that game to somebody, if they uninstall and reinstall it a couple times, you could lose all of your profit on the game by them installing the game twice. So what do? Do you make people pay for additional installs? They're like, well, why would you do that? That's like so anti-customer. It's like, well, my hard drive failed, so I reinstalled the game. Or there were errors, so I reinstalled the game. Or I got a virus, so I reinstalled the game. And it's like, now you have to pay us another $3 for that? Or I have to pay them $3 because your hard drive failed? That's really asinine. Yes, that's what I saw too. Martial law was going to be retroactive. Like, this is going to apply for all games that you've done in the past as well. That was insane to me. That just seemed crazy. It's like you're gonna. It's like you sign a contract with someone. It's like the terms of this contract can be changed by one party, me, whenever I'm feeling particularly greedy and or evil. That's a line stolen from Dogbird, but it holds. Like, sometimes you see these licensing agreements, and it's like you can just change these terms whenever you want. It's like, yeah, we can change them whenever we want, and to anything we want, we can just change it, and then it will retroactively apply. Now, the flip side to that, just so people know, those kinds of things don't hold up in court, right? Because courts are often concerned about justice. They'll throw that kind of stuff out a lot of times. So, yeah, Unity changed the previous terms of service as well, so they can do it. It was very shady. What was the other one? Adobe did a really crazy one recently too that I didn't really cover on the channel, but is worth thinking about. Where basically they can use all of your work to train their AI. And I was like, listen, Adobe created the most thorough, they created the best stock photo website in the world with Adobe stock. And they just fed all of that into their AI with the license, because they could use it to improve their products. They're like, well, one of our products is our generative AI. So we just fed all of your stock photos into our AI. So now people can just have our AI draw this instead of licensing your stock photos. I say that as I still sell stock photos on Adobe stock. I still make money on that, but I go to Adobe stock now, I type something in, half of it will be AI generated. And if you don't like any of that, they'll generate an image for you right there. Come on. Previous terms of service pretty much said no future terms of service changes will affect you, which they removed. That's funny. Anyway, let's get back to this. I love talking about dev stuff because it's something that's kind of foreign to me. I'm just not experienced with it. I always want to know what people that are in that space are really thinking about. I've done a little bit of work in the game space, but mostly on the creative end, like writing. I haven't done a game soundtrack yet. That'd be something fun to do. And if I just did a visual novel, I could do all the music too. So that would be a fun part of the project to do as well, is to do the music. Pretty sure Meta just got caught using everything ever posted on Facebook to teach their AI. Yep. I believe it. The real thing is, then I made this point about generative AI, is like the net value of what it's produced is zero. Nobody is buying AI art. Nobody is willing to pay for it. Why would you? There's no scarcity there. Well, here's my AI art that I had this robot make of this cool big boobed anime girl. Great. I'll just tell the AI to make me one. Why won't you pay me for this? I typed in this prompt. I tried several times to get it to make a picture this good. Cool, I'll just have it make me a picture too. It's a post-scarcity item, you know? In Photoshop, though, using AI assets is really more about like getting to the final product quicker. Like, people aren't saying, AI, make me a book cover. And then it's like perfect, right? It's more like, AI, make me this image. Now let me paint over it. Now let me do the words. Now let me design this. Let me do the color. Like, people have seen me do it live. I'll start with some AI images and blend them together, photocomp them. And then after a while, I have the composite image. I'll do color on that. I'll paint over it. I do a bunch of stuff. So you can start with stock photos, or you can start with AI stuff that no one's seen before. The temptation is to do the AI stuff because it'll make your work stand out more because people haven't seen it, rather than to do just stock photos. But in the past, we would just do stock photos for all that stuff because that's what you had available. It was the quickest way to get the image that you needed, versus painting it. Like, having to do all of the work to learn how to properly paint human figures is a lot. It takes years of practice, So, anyway. spell farce? I guess that's how you spell farce. There's that song. Okay. No. I don't know if I want Dirgesh to be a boy or a girl in this one. Dirgesh is usually female, but can be male. You ever struggle with character motivations? I feel like my characters don't have good reasons to do things. Well, that's the start of conflict, right? You have a conflict that has to be solved, and you really need to have characters who have a strong motivation to solve that conflict. So in the case of this story, mom's sick, I gotta fix it. Dad is missing, I gotta fix it. I care about my kingdom, I care about my mom, I care about my dad. We're gonna find out now that Alfred really cares about Victoria, which presents a problem for this transaction. Right, so everybody here has a motivation. Aethelready is motivated by friendship and also greed, right? He's wanting to make some money on the adventure, and he gives that up for the love of his friends. So this is like a big virtue moment for Aethelready. And this will be a virtue moment for Victoria and for Alfred. They have motivations to do stuff. Victoria's real motivation, at first, it's to have adventure. It's like the Luke Skywalker motivation. I just want to get away from here and do something exciting. You're going to figure out right here, her deeper motivation is because she's fallen in love with Alfred. And so this is a moment where they really are going to have to like air out their passions and admit what's going on between each other, right? And have to like come to the real hard choice of infatuation, which is like the madness of it making you abandon all things that you know righteously should be good in order to have what you desire, which is a very big piece of classical stuff, right? But if we look at like classical things, why did Dido fall in love? I mean, why did Aeneas fall in love with Dido? He got shot by Cupid's arrow, right? So his motivations are like given to him by the gods directly in some cases. So if your characters don't have a real reason to do it, you need to put them closer to the conflict. You need to put them a little closer to the conflict so that it matters. Or you can make the conflict really epic and the stakes high enough that every character is going to be motivated to solve the conflict in some way. So, that's the reasons. Yeah, you want to have your characters have reasons to do things besides the plot will move forward if they do this. And this was something with like, I think Trey Parker said this, was like, he's doing this because of this. This happens because of this. Like, there's always a reason and a rhyme to every single event happening. This person's doing this because he wants this, right? Cartman is doing this because he wants this outcome. You have to have a desired outcome, and that's going to motivate you to do things, right? It's like, is a random knight going to go on a quest to save the queen? Maybe. The question is, what does he feel like he's going to get out of it? Whereas the prince here is going to want to save the queen because it's his mom. He cares about his mom. He's close to the conflict. He's the prince. He cares about his kingdom. So having characters that are really close to the conflict can often solve that. This was, I believe, a complaint in Final Fantasy XII, where during the course of the development, you end up with Vaughn, who doesn't have a strong motivation to participate in the plot. He's almost there witnessing the other characters who care about the conflict, and he's kind of along for the ride. Now, is that necessarily bad? I don't think so. He wants to be a sky pirate. He wants to have status. He has some motivations, but he doesn't really have the same motivations as Ash. The widow of the prince, right? The widow of the king or whoever. He doesn't have her kind of motivations. So you're kind of having him watch other characters who are closer to the conflict care about the conflict. It's not necessarily bad. Like, Luke Skywalker initially has no reason to care about the Empire. He's like, of course I don't like the Empire, but what can I do about it? And Obi-Wan's like, well, actually you could be a Jedi and I'll train you. And you have to care about this conflict because this thing actually destroys planets and will be a threat to everybody. And George Lucas, to get Luke out the door, also kills Luke's parents. So he really has no reason to stay where he is. Though I think that also harms some of his motivation because he also doesn't have that much to fight for. But the conflict is so big, it's a cosmic conflict that he can get kind of sucked up in it. So yeah, you have to have the characters be close to the conflict or have the conflict be so big nobody can escape it. And then motivations pretty much take care of themselves in most cases. So yeah. I'm writing new words, so this is a first draft. This is a live write. Right. Which is why this is not the final chapter. There's a bunch more chapters to come. Not a bunch more. There's a few more chapters. I have my little plan over here. I should link my Patreon. By the way, you can read all these sort of as they come out on Patreon. And Substack. If you're a paid Substack subscriber, you can do that on there as well. Like that. And Substack. So I'll do all the other phases live too. All the publication phases, like on the last one. That's right. I read an article about the PS5 Pro. I don't know who that's for. I don't know who it's for. Are any of your books like weird, dark, high fantasy? Yeah. This one? All of them? Yeah. These are dark fantasy. They're also pretty weird. I did this one live earlier this year. It's a very short book, right? It'll take you 2 hours to read. This one too. A little longer, but it's pretty short. Both of these are related to this little universe here. This series, Moonsong series. This one is... Oh, you probably can't see this. It's like tiny. What am I doing? Yeah, these ones. These are pretty dark. So this one I did live. This is one from the other year. Both of these are more dark fantasy. What? Shadow and Smoke. This is like gunpowder fantasy, but it's actually in the same universe. There's some dark fantasy elements in it. If you want, this is the weird one. This is the weird one right here. Al Shafalda. This is the weird one. I specifically wrote this without any kind of commercial intentions for it, and because it's weird, right? It's a tragedy. It's a high fantasy tragedy. And there's not really much market for that. But for some people, they're like, this is my favorite book of yours. And I'm like, I'm glad that I wrote it then. You know? This is historic fantasy. Muramasa Blood Drinker, classic. If you like samurai fiction and you like gore, you like blood and people getting their heads chopped off and guts ripped out, this is a good one. What else? Do I have any other really dark stuff? I have the sci-fi stuff is darker too, you know, but that's science fiction. End up with a big pile. Eventually, end up with a big pile of books, like the high fantasy stuff, like Needle Ash, Water of Awakening. This stuff I wouldn't call dark fantasy, although I think I use the dark fantasy keyword when I market it because I think people who like dark fantasy like this kind of stuff. This book got like assassinations and intrigue and that kind of thing, but I really consider it pretty straight high fantasy. Same thing with the King Leper, which people got as part of the Patreon, but it isn't out yet normally because I'm waiting on cover designs and stuff like that to go through. So, yeah. So those are those. So yeah, this is another like just Photoshop cover, and I did that for all. This is actually all three. There were 3 books, and I just put them in one bigger book. You know, it's a trilogy. So I just put the trilogy into one book and called it like Eternal Dream 2. And Eternal Dream 3 is King Leopard, which is actually 3 books. But if I do a crowdfund for it, I'll probably release it as like one big volume. And I may include Al Shafalda and Crown of Sight in it as one giant volume that has all of the relevant mythology for that story in the same book. And that might be fun. So, yeah. All right, where were we? Let's keep going. See if we might be able to hit 60,000 words here. I'm gonna do it this way. Dearer than my father. Another song. I need to do some more recording. But
Do this for flat.
got to
belly
get some
at
stuff
60.
worked up for. My uncle died a couple days ago, so I gotta. My aunt wants me to play some stuff at his funeral, so I actually got to practice, and not just like whip out my guitar and improvise a bunch of stuff. Unfortunately. But, you know, if I work it out, maybe I'll just do some recordings for the channel. Nobody likes classical guitar, but whatever. Maybe we'll record some stuff. capital. Alright, let's write this bizarre.
How to eat white rice and stay thin, like in
Let's
Japan.
interrupt the song for a nice ad about white rice here. Silly. There we go. Way to ruin the vibe, YouTube ads, especially on content that's not monetized. You know, at least if you were going to have the ad, I could make a penny from watching an ad on my own crap. Alas! That is not what's happening. Oh well. Sympathies, life to you and yours, all loved ones remaining. Thank you so much. Easier to be good, father, mother, uncle, aunt, however. Harder, yes. I believe I've tried in my life. This gives me such peace. Yeah, my uncle was a good guy. He was he was a very patient and kind person. He died rather unexpectedly, but he had a long series of health problems leading up to this. He didn't die from his illnesses. He had cancer on top of his head, on the skin on top of his head, where he was balding. And then they removed that, but then they found it had spread into the cranium. So they removed part of his skull and put in a plate and then a graft to try to solve that. He had already survived lung cancer a few years ago. So anyway, that didn't kill him. He fell down in the bathroom at the doctor's office and hit his head. It was like a freak accident kind of thing. But because he was already weaker and because of where he hit and that thing on his head, he ended up dying from that. So it was a big shock. People go through periods of illness, and you kind of have this expectation when someone's ill that there's going to be like this, this sort of fading, and like, especially with something like cancer, nowadays there's this expectation that someone's going to end up kind of fading away, which is really hard to do. But I can't say that it would have been better that way. Or that illness may not have ever killed him, but it was a real surprise. No one had expected this to happen. So, this happens, right? Like, our bodies fail. The fall of man is the persistence of the fall through the body is part of it. Our bodies don't last forever. And there's no real avoiding that. Like, you could prolong your life. You could try to live a healthy life as good as you can, but you're not... He was 75? It was 1947. So 75 or 76, right? So he was, what was that, 70s? I think he was almost 76. Bible says the years of a man are 70. So 70 years. That's also, by the way, evidence for this idea that people only live to be 30. It's like, then why did the Bible say that they live to be 70? It's because if you survived, right, you could expect to live a fairly long life if you didn't die to violence or illness or something like that when you were young. Then you might expect to live a long life, and then eventually your body's much less able to deal with illnesses and things like that when you get to be 70, and something ends up getting you, at least back then. Now we have ways we could prolong life, but we can't ever completely avoid death. It's just one of those things. So it's one of those things where I see, this guy on YouTube who's his name's Brian Johnson. He went viral with some stuff. His whole thing is trying to prolong life, and he has this sort of technocratic, transhumanist belief that somehow we're going to live either forever, we'll overcome aging and death, which I don't believe is going to be possible, or we'll extend our lives to be out to 150 years, 200 years. And I don't think either of those are going to happen. Right? The complex machinery that is our body is very complex. But you have to think about living forever. It's kind of like the curse of the vampire. Living forever with a fallen body in a fallen world is actually hell. Right? Being in the presence of God and rejecting Him is hell, but living in a fallen state is hell. Our destiny is not to stay in this fallen state, but to grow and ascend out of it. That's what God intends for us, I believe. So, yeah, you can live, let's say you figure out how to biohack yourself up to the age of 120. how are you going to feel about things at 110? You know, the people I've seen who have lived to be really old are like very peaceful and like very virtuous people, believe it or not. Right? Like they live, like they tolerate being old because they're like closer to God. If that makes any sense. But eventually, you know, it's time to go. It's time to go. Albert says, my husband's grandfather passed from cancer. He had about a week between diagnosis and dying. That was my grandpa too. I had just enough time to get affairs in order. Mother-in-law passed unexpectedly at age 50. Both were rough, yeah. So my grandfather died of pancreatic cancer, and there was about a week, I think, maybe 2, between when they diagnosed it and when he finally died. It was so fast. Like, my dad was in the Army at the time, and they called him up, and they're like, you know, what's happening? They called him again. They're like, you better get down here because he's not going to be around for much longer. And then I think he died before my dad could get down and see him. I think my dad got leave. I think he was in Fort Benning, Georgia at the time. He might have been in Annapolis. He might have been in Maryland. But he drove down, and I think he missed it, which is really sad. Right, it sucks, but that's what happens. You know, Highlander, who wants to live forever? You know, yeah. It's an interesting theme that you see a lot in literature because it's a good speculative idea. What if you could live forever? What would it be like? I think to tolerate living forever, you have to like fix the humanness of the psyche and the soul. And if I look at someone like Brian Johnson, I'm like, it's not fixed. Nothing, no shade against him. I don't think he's a bad person, but he's not what I would consider a virtuous person. He says he's like gotten rid of vice in his life. He's never gotten rid of the vice of pride, right? And there's a gluttony to life too. Even though you're not consuming things, you're being gluttonous about living your life, which is going to be a temporary phenomenon. Of course, he divorced his wife, right? Like these are all things that are problems with virtue. Right? I think he was falsely accused by his ex-fiancée of a bunch of stuff too, and that's nothing against him. So I'm not saying he's a bad person, but he's going to be blinded by hubris if he thinks that somehow me not eating sugar has allowed me to love life, and sleeping for 8 hours a day has allowed me to love life enough that sin won't be a burden when I'm 90. I think he's very naive. Not a bad guy, and a lot of his advice is probably good about how to maximize your body's health, how to reduce aging, and live a healthy lifestyle. All of that's good. The question is, what are you directing that towards? Are you directing it towards caring for your family? I think he loves his kids, so there is part of that, right? Or are you directing it towards a gluttony for your own life? Are you a Numenorian, bitterly hanging on to life until the very end, beyond all hope, like going to your grave with Alzheimer's, completely mad out of your mind, completely miserable until life is torn from you? Or are you looking forward to the ascent to God, right? Which one is it? Anyway, let's write. This is a cool moment. Let's write this. We gotta get this. Gotta get this climax ready before we call it. Meanwhile, oldest woman in France smoked and drank daily and attributed her longevity to that. I remember, supposedly the oldest woman who ever lived, I think, was French. Yeah. And she just lived every day like she was just going to keep living, and then one day she died. I remember in class one time we were sharing wishes we had. A girl in front of me said hers way to be ready to die when the time comes. Sticks to me this day. Seems like a good thing to wish for, yeah. Anyway. Not cocking him, knocking him. Boy, one letter can make a difference. Alfred? Alfred. Alfred would be an interesting name. Alfred. if I'll reveal this in the next chapter or not. Anyway, we got to this big climactic moment. I'm out of time for the stream, but I want to write 100 more words so that the document says there's 60,000. It's a good round number. How long is this chapter? That's pretty long. It's 6,000 words. Well, I like Gwendolyn. I love that name. Like Brunhilde. I like names like Helga. I like Germanic names. This is more of like an English or Saxon name. They just have a ring to them, you know. I like Greek names too. Of course, I mean, every culture has its cool names. To me, the names that start to get hard are like when you start to get to like Finnish and Russian, Rus names, Slavic names. Those always feel like they're hard for me to say. They don't want to roll off the tongue very easily to me. Just my experience. I tend to like German names, but if I wanted to set something in more of that had more of like an Eastern European or Slavic feel, I try to use more Slavic names, and just pick ones that I think are easy enough for me to think about how you say them. you know. That's it. How much did we write? I went a little long, but I'm going to check it. Let's see how much we wrote. Hold on. First of all, let's get some more music.
If you don't want to open your third eye, then don't.
Where was I? Wait, I wanted to see what the word count was for today. There you go, right here. Quite a bit. Let's see. 3,400 words today, so that's not bad. All right, that's going to be it for today, though. And that's the end of that chapter. I may re-break some of the chapters. I may put a chapter break earlier because we got to like a big cutoff point, and now we're going to go on to the next adventure. This is stuff that wasn't even part of the planning phase. It's all going to be, we got a big surprise coming for everyone. So, yeah, let me link the Patreon and stuff again, and then I got to get the kids to bed. And that'll be that. All right, I appreciate everybody coming. Also, make sure you're on the mailing list. I haven't sent out a mail in quite some time. dvspress.com/list will put you on the mailing list. Boom. All right. I think that's it. All my other links are in the description. So anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me and hanging out and for your feedback and your kind thoughts. I appreciate all of those. And we're going to see where the story's going to go next week. No stream tomorrow. I don't have one planned for tomorrow. So yeah, that's going to be it. All right, chapter 17, baby. Boom. Okay. All right, that's it, and I'll see you guys next time.